All right, guys, we are going to get started with today's presentation. The answer to the question is this house is worth $2.8 million. I know. And I see this because people keep asking, oh, surely San Diego housing prices aren't going to go up. Well, this house is in Silicon Valley. It's actually my sister's house. She bought it a couple years ago for $600,000. It's now worth 2.8. And this is what happens when local rules prevent people from adding on, building, whatever. She's actually not allowed to add on to this house because the local housing rules are you cannot have a house that is more than 50% of the lot. Well, she's got a small lot. So she is stuck with this post-war. It's not particularly well built, but it's just impossible. And that's what happens. And that's what's driving up housing prices in San Diego County and the rest of California. So that's why we're talking today about upzoning and really ADUs, SB9, SB10. And this is important to wrap your head around because this is going to be the future. And it's something California has avoided for a very, very long time, but I want you to look at a historical approach. This is Boston. This is actually Boston Harbor in 1616. And I want you to look closely at the lot lines and the houses that are on them. So you look at something like this where there's two houses. I mean, these were essentially old farms right off the river. And as Boston grew, it's a lot of the same lots, although there's some carving out, but now you're starting to see more houses, more building. And originally, this is what Boston proper looked like. And surprising, there's a big house and there's an ADU and a big house and an ADU. And then again, same map, 1798, you're seeing more carve outs and so on. And this is Boston today. Same lot lines, multiple buildings, and it looks like that, right? 4 stories, right? This is Coronado. So this is historical California. You can see San Diego, and really it's just spotted, but you know, big lots, huge lots, city block size lots, right? And then it filled in, they carved up the lots into different things, houses are growing. And now this is Coronado today. People think it's cute little Coronado, but it's really filled in, just like Boston. And this happens to be Athens, Greece, but really when you look at any major city in the Western world, this is what it looks like. Carved up lots from original farm plots and single family homes. We're just not used to that because California's has really been more NIMBY oriented. And so what did they do, right? They upzoned. What cities figured out in the 20 teens is that they're tired of NIMBY fights. They're tired of the neighbors fighting over the next door neighbor's ADU unit and so on. So what they did is they quietly upzoned. It's a national trend. Minneapolis turned around and said 75% of all single family homes are going to be R3 now. They treated it as rental units. El Cajon and many of the cities around here have quietly upzoned entire swaths. So that's why you're finding people whose homes they had no idea are now upzoned to R4 or R1, and they're still a single family lot, a whole neighborhood of single family lots. And the state of California back-ended this by saying, we're going to upzone the entire state with ADUs because who can possibly oppose a granny flat, right? Granny flats, who's going to be against grandma having a granny flat in the backyard? And that's how they did it. Then you now have SB9, which allows you, just was signed into law. It will go into effect on January 1. That allows you to ministerially split a lot. Well, Ian Scattergood, who's on with myself today, will tell you what the heck does it mean ministerially? There's a lot of questions. One, authority's version of ministerially is something different than another. So there's still quite a bit of question. and a lot of groups trying to get some clarification from the California Department of Housing and Community Development. But what we do know at the moment is you have to have a minimum of a 40-60 split, lot split. It's supposed to be a lot easier and a lot less time sensitive. Some of the theories going out now and some of the proposals going out now is that the cost will be $15,000 to split the lot, and it will need to be done within 6 months by the local groups. That's, I think, what HCD might consider. That's a heck of a lot different than a $100,000 cost and a couple of years to split a lot. Right now, there's a whole bunch of restrictions, no rental units. That will probably change. California's testing this, and owner occupied only, no historic sites, etc. So that's going to be a game changer, right? To carving up those lots. Then SB10 recommends, but does not mandate, that cities allow up to 10 units of any kind, ADUs, rental units, whatever, on a single family home lot. Now, hold on to the lending guidelines on that, but this is not unusual for, say, the city of San Diego. And city of San Diego, many of you may know that the city of San Diego allows unlimited ADUs on a property up to the setbacks and with a couple of restrictions, which I'll talk about later. By the way, I'm very proud to have Rafael Perez on the call. Rafael is on the Casita Coalition and ADU Coalition with me, and is very involved nationally on the ADU basis, representing National Association of Realtors, NAREP, and a whole bunch of others. So good to have you, Rafael. And rumor has it that the city of LA is about to adopt city of San Diego's rules on this too, and other places where they're required by state law, but also need, simply put, more affordable housing. So, Ian, can you talk a bit about what ADUs look like right now? What are the limitations here?
So can you get my face up on there too?
Yeah. Can you see?
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
I just wanted them to show I was actually part of this group. So unfortunately, I didn't have time to do PowerPoints of like little slides that if you look at a basic lot in San Diego, say Claremont, is 60 by 100, and we have a lot of 50 by 100s, and now obviously we know we have weird, small 45 by 90s, and we have big square houses on them. But let's work with a lot of the older 1970s. If I had a 5,000 square foot lot, and the current ADU rule says I can pretty much have a primary house on it, I can have a junior within the primary house, or now even inside the garage up to 500 square foot, if it at least has its own entrance and an entrance to the primary. And then I can also have up to a 1,200 square foot detached ADU. Now, Meredith and I know the city of San Diego is where I want to look as an investor to build a brand new ADU and at the same time a brand new junior ADU with that new building. So city of San Diego is less restrictive than some of the other jurisdictions. Now, if we look at what's coming at us with SB9, and Meredith has got some pretty good slides here, and she's done an awful lot of time involvement in this thing. Now we can get up to the 4. So I think my question was, what can I do under the current ADU rule? Is that it?
Yeah, I mean, you're just giving people a good sense of what we're seeing commonly. I mean, we can talk about, having 15 units on a lot, but what are people really doing and looking at, and what are, like, for example, the maximum square foot for a detached ADU is 1,200 square feet. And that's important. That can fit up to 3 bedrooms. I mean, these are up to full-size houses. What do you typically see on a junior ADU, Ian?
So in a junior, a lot of times I'm just seeing, 200 to 400 square foot. It's either going to be a studio or a 1-bedroom, depending on, I ask all my customers as a designer, what is the use? Is it for family? Is it family now? And then it's going to be for rental purposes. And when we drive around where we have a lot of these community zones, there's going to be no parking. So there was an event last week in North Park at Second Chance Bar or whatever, put on by a lender, and it took me 15 minutes to park. And now we have multi-families going up, and we also have the ADUs and juniors. But typically, like if you're going to live on the property, I'm seeing people are only going to do maybe one unit. And then they might add like the second unit. So, you know, a good question is, when we start, what is your fastest ROI is what I'm hearing from most people. How do you offset that monster mortgage? And for me, looking to restart again after all the years that I had with a significant other, I'm going to look for a home that has something of closed in square footage. It could be an attached garage, a detached garage, a workshop, but anything that's on a premise or property that's already legally permitted, I can take that and do what we call a change of use and go from non-habitable to habitable. And that's your fastest way to get an ADU on your property. And a lot of people are going, well, whether it's an attached or detached garage, I kind of need my garage. Well, if most garages can fit one car and it's a 2-car parking, and then you put your bicycles and all your stuff in there, when you think about getting a 10 by 20 storage for about $250 to $300 a month, and if you can take a 400 square foot garage and you can put in a kitchen and a bathroom, maybe a 1-bedroom, and I'm trying to get most of my customers put in at least stacked wash and dryer, you're going to get anywhere from $2,000 to $3,000 a month for that. Can you afford to put your stuff in storage? Absolutely. So most people are telling me, can I go above my garage because I really still want my garage? Well, again, I can't change people's thought process, but it depends on what your budget is. So to help an architect or a general contractor, you as the person that is developing the lot, whether it's yours or a friend of yours, or you're basically, as a realtor or bird dog, excuse that expression, you can look at opportunity for your buyers to where they can buy something a little bit out of their price range. In most garage conversions for about $80,000, you can put in plumbing, sewer, kitchen, and now you're going to offset your mortgage within the first 6 months and almost pay half of your mortgage by getting that change of use into a unit. And the nice thing is with the ADU, it gets its own address. What the state is giving you the option of is you do not have to put in a new electric meter, a new gas meter, a new water meter. If you were really worried about it, you can sub-meter. So you have 1 meter on the outside of your house and you can have 2 meters on the opposite side of the wall. Or what I'm telling most of my customers, if you look at your average electric bill and it's $200 to $300 a month, depending on the year, you're going to put in a unit that's a third of your size, use a third of your price and include it in the rent. So you do not have to have its own electric or gas or water meter. And a lot of people want to know, well, what do you want to know if you're getting positive cash flow? You know, but again, my customer always is the right person. Ask me any question, I'll give you the answer, and then they can decide. So I like the screen that's up here now, ADU financing. You want to take over a little bit, Meredith? Do I got to mute so she can talk?
Sorry. Yeah, and it's not just about building ADUs, but remodeling in general. I mean, when you, for every 100,000 you spend, it's about $450 a month. Conversely, every 10,000 you spend is about $45 a month. And by the way, this is really important as you go in and sell very aged listings that need to be updated. You know, the average home now in San Diego County is 40 years old and the average buyer is like 32 or 33 or something. So we can I always tell clients, rather than having the seller fix things, and this, you know, the seller's not going to do the best job they could, you know, have the buyers fix it as part of your mortgage. And that's something that we specialize. These are not just cash out opportunities, but they are also purchase opportunities where you build the renovation into the mortgage. We call it renovation loans in general. You've heard of 203Ks, but there's a whole bunch of other really good options. Then they're based on future appraised value. And that to me is what is exciting. You got to wrap your head around it. And this is really kind of what this is about. It is a very collaborative process because, you know, you've got to find the right property for them. They've got to be approved for the loan. The appraiser's got to be trained. You got to have a design guy and contractor like Ian, who's now working with Multitaskr, all kinds of stuff. But it's worth it because you are building strategic wealth for your clients over generations as they split their lots, build some more. Let me go back to the lot split on SB9 because I think that is super duper important. Already several of my clients who have big lots, particularly in East County, but also in Vista or Valley Center or wherever, you get a big lot and you got a little tiny single family home on it. You can build an ADU on the opposite side of the lot, split the lot, and now you can build ADUs and 2 ADUs, split the lot again. Now you have 4 properties and you can build at least 1 ADU on each. This is what the full opportunity is to max out, you know, your entire property and create cash flowing structures. And I'm going to throw this back out. Where else can you find a $200,000 2-bedroom or even 3-bedroom home in San Diego County? It doesn't exist. So leveraging, helping your clients leverage their existing property to build homes and build rental units or stuff for their family is what this real opportunity is. So, I want to make sure that we're wrapping our head around that. $200,000 to build a 2-bedroom ADU, $300,000 is typically more for the 3 bedrooms with the timber prices, oftentimes so we can see it for $250,000. So the collaboration is super important. I think what's also important is 3 weeks ago, Raphael and I were testifying before the Federal Housing Finance Authority, and this is really important because the lending guidelines have not yet caught up, but here's what we think may happen, what we think. First of all, ADUs are likely to, in lending guidelines, be treated like rental units. And ultimately, what all the GSEs are saying is the max units you do, no matter what you call it, a rental unit, a pool house, whatever, we'll finance 4 total units on a property, okay? And every unit you add increases the loan limit. So right now in San Diego County, this year's loan limits for a single family home for conventional conforming is $753,000. But for 2 units, it's $934,000. So that can really increase the budget availability to build more. It also allows us to factor in rental income if they change it. Right now we cannot. And then we're working through ability to split lots and so much more. So obviously ADUs are a huge business opportunity. There's 53,000 obvious ADU properties in San Diego County, and that's not counting the people in North Park and so on who are very happy to build, you know, above the garage or multi-levels or whatever. And particularly as people move to driverless cars and Uber and all this stuff, you don't need that garage quite so much anymore, or it's more cost effective, as Ian is talking about, to have storage, right? This is a big demand and strategic opportunity to really to adjust your business and take advantage of it. Step 1, build your ADU team. You gotta have people who you know. You know, you've worked with Ian for years as a permit pro. He's gone into the ADU business. He's a designer, draftsman, and he represents a general contractor. Do not, as a lender, I'm telling you, work with contractors who want to use you or your client as their first cut at being an ADU contractor, right? The rules are changing in a head spinning way. You have to have a contractor who's keeping up on the options and opportunities. Chris, will you talk about the builder who broke down the setback wall? If you're
Oh yes, that was one of my favorites. So it is really important to understand the nuances with accessory dwelling units. And hi everybody, I'm Chris Wonakowski with Ruling Design Group. There's a lot of nuances with accessory dwelling units that it really is important to have a builder and a designer that are very, very familiar with accessory dwelling units, the ADUs, because there are some differences and they can be quite critical depending, on how the existing site is. And I had one of our projects that we were keeping a garage to build above, and the contractor came in and demoed the garage, and we're like, we needed that footprint. And this was a couple years ago before the city changed their setback requirements. And the builder went out and dug back out some of the wood that they just ripped down and essentially rebuilt the wall they just tore down. And thankfully, we got the inspector to approve it. But it is critical. The nuances are important, especially municipality to municipality. They're very, very different in slight ways that can make or break a project. And that's why having a good design team and contracting team and lender that are familiar with ADU in and out is great.
Absolutely. Thanks, Chris. That's such a great story. So, the other thing is, quite honestly, a lender and appraiser. We all know renovation loans are complicated. We're trying to perfect that manufacturing process of the loans. But if you let your clients just go to any credit union or bank, you're going to get a junior woodchuck at the teller who says, renovation loans, I don't even know what that is. Right? Or simply you're not qualified. So and then it's killed your deal for you. So make sure you know lenders, and also lenders who with the right appraisers. Again, if you get a junior woodchuck appraiser, they will literally give an ADU $0 value. I just had that happen on a 900 square foot 2-bedroom house that's going to cost ADU that's going to cost $200,000. They gave it $0 value. Why? Because the appraisal guidelines are still outdated and they're not trained. So we got our appraisers trained within our AMC panels, and only ADU trained appraisers appraise my ADU projects, period. And that's important. Otherwise, it'll be a deal killer. And finally, these are obviously take long times. So you've got to have a system in place to follow up on your leads with your partners over time, because you're passing a baton from purchasing the property to, the lender, to the designer, to the GC, back to the lender. You've got to have a system in place and partners that are going to do that. So number one, build your team. Number two, call your database, right? We'll do events with them. And events are great because they kind of help clients wrap their heads around it. We're going to be down at the Del Mar Fall Home Fair, which is focused on ADUs this year. So October 22nd, 24th. But get your clients together, call them up, and discuss options on their particular properties. Obviously, your clients with larger land are going to be ideal. But let's take a look at who you should be calling. Number one, who are the clients we see? We see post-financial crisis parents, right? So you've got adult children, maybe, they're still working on their retirement, their kids are growing up. That's a great way to have adult children, especially those in college, whatever, live in the ADU and pay their parents rent or whatever. Aging in place grandparents is a huge group of people. And I see, for example, the people who are retired are in that young baby boomer group that they transitioned from pensions to 401ks, but they didn't know to save. And so they owe $0 on their house, but they have like $2,000 a month in Social Security income. That's somebody you want to talk to about maybe building an ADU in the backyard, moving into the ADU because they can age in place, it's wheelchair friendly, whatever, and renting out the primary home or splitting the lot, all kinds of, and for cash for their retirement. They are house rich and cash poor, and there are terrific ways you can help them. But to me, the really exciting is the millennials. as you know, many first-time home buyers cannot afford to buy these properties, but they can if they add ADUs, right? And so what I have a number of young investors who are, their goal is to buy a new single family home every year and add a JADU and an ADU, rinse and repeat every single year. So by the end of 12 years, they'll have 4 years, they'll have 12 cash flowing properties. Yes, you can do that. You can buy with 3% down on your first one, use a renovation loan to finance 100% of construction. And then when you buy your next home, you buy with 5% down. And again, using the renovation loan to finance all of this. You do not have to have a ton of money to do this. So let's take a look at those sweet spots. So your loan limits in San Diego for one unit, like I said, is $753,000. So the way that we know how much we can afford is the purchase loan amount, not the purchase price, plus the construction budget has to be equal to or lower than the loan limit. So for example, if you buy a single family home with 5% down, $650,000, now you've got a purchase loan amount of $617, plus that allows $135,000 for construction. Well, that's easy to get a 2-car garage. And what do you think if you get a really big 2-car garage, like pretty standard San Diego 2-car garage, what could you build in that?
I tell people the small 20 by 20 is a 2-car garage. I mean, that I can do a 1-bedroom in. If I get an oversized 500 square foot, I can easily put 2 bedrooms in that, or I can do a really righteous big bedroom bath, and then I can do a half bath and laundry. You can do a lot of sexy stuff in that, and you can actually pick who you want your end user to be your higher end rent. So what we're seeing not only is residential big for single family, look what they're doing in Mission Valley. They're making high-end rental apartments that are going for $3,200 to $5,200. You know, so I mean, the opportunity is huge here. And then the other thing, as you're talking to the agents in the room, you can look at the people that you helped buy a house in the last 2 to 5 years. You know how far they stretch to get into that house. And if they're not aware of these rules, you can go into your old database and let them understand that they can put things on, because then they're going to be able to offset their money limit. You're back in their face, because out of sight, out of mind. It's amazing how many people I don't see in contact with this pandemic. Oh, I forgot about you. I just did an ADU. So out of sight, out of mind is very important. So I'm not very good at social media, but as you agents are looking into your database, what you have for buyers now, what you have for past closed accounts, you can actually make them see you again, and then go, oh wow, you did me a solid. Then out of all this, they're going to say, here's somebody else to refer to you, because you're back in their face again.
That's right. And you often find that once somebody's done an ADU, they get so excited about the investment potential. They want to go buy more properties and build ADUs and all that. They get really excited when they see this. So there's a lot of good opportunities as you talk to them. The money comes when you start looking at this. So now people say, where the heck am I going to buy a $650,000 home? Well, last week at PSAR East, these huge lots in El Cajon, 11,000 square feet, came on the market for $650. This particular one was $625. What you're looking for is a large, very large lot, preferably 7,500 square feet or larger, and that 2-car garage. Your 2-car garage is your Ganga deal. You can do those for furbish them into a 1 or 2 bedroom ADU. You know, you add a deck. You can do that for $100,000 or less and rent it really at a sweet deal. Here's another incredible opportunity that just sold, a duplex in Bayho for $895, and it had 2 garages in the backyard. So they're converting those for a total of about $100,000. Now you've got a 4-unit property in Bayho, and you know, you bought for a steal. So I see properties open all the time that people don't realize. Similarly, when you go to list, feel free to call us and be like, hey, what can we do? Because we can come up with plans and financing and opportunities to turn a property. You're going to get a far better offer when you're looking at the full value of the property, because people aren't just buying that, for the house. They're buying it for a large lot that can be converted, all this other stuff. So you're going to get better prices on your listings for this too. So get started, group up, find your contractors, your lenders. We're here. Educate your clients, call your client database. We are here to do events, help people talk about their options, create a system for leads, and market together. And that's kind of all we got today. Anybody have any thoughts, comments, questions? You can unmute yourself.
Meredith?
Yeah.
I think, sorry, I was distracted when you first started, but I think you had said something about, what about the people that say, but I still want my garage, but the garage is the only part of the home that they can convert to an ADU. So for a person like that, an ADU is not really an option, right?
No, you can still build storage. And the question is what are you using the storage for? Is it for cars? Is it, it's kind of the thing where there's a will, there's a way. I mean, how about something above the garage? So there's definitely some options.
So let me chime in. So a lot of people are saying they want their garage, and the way that you ask that question, they have nowhere else but the garage, and they want to keep the garage. Well, let's look at an average house is 4-bedroom, 2-bath. And if their kids have all gone to college, they don't need another bedroom and bathroom. Repurpose your existing home, whether you call it a junior or an ADU. So here's the real difference. Both a junior and an ADU has to be at least 150 square feet. A junior has to have at least a 3/4 bath, its own entry to the exterior, and a door between the primary and that junior. And it cannot exceed 500 square feet. The junior is deed restricted. It'll go on title that it can't be rented out separately or sold separately. And let's say later they have more money and then they go, well, I guess now the architect told me I can't actually put a whole second story on this home. So we can always, whether we call it an ADU in the first place and get that as its own address, we can always repurpose it a second time through the building department, call it a junior, and then we can add 1,200 square foot on top of that house, keep your garage, and now you got 2 units. And
when we look at properties, and I'm happy if somebody wants to put in chat a property they want us to look at, maybe it's a listing. I look at a property like this. Now, this probably goes into a canyon, so you probably got some limitations. But when I see this, I see a huge ADU in the back, maybe even a lot split and shared driveway. But I also see this lovely garage that has a garage conversion. To me, that's an obvious one. Does anybody have properties they want us to sort of look over? And we have an interesting one from Jan. We're looking at her property on the shared screen here. Interesting lot line here, really great opportunity. Wow. It does have a street coming through it, so it makes sense, but the lot line comes way over here. What would you do if you own this property?
So it's kind of be interesting. I liked your analogy that you said on a big lot earlier, to go the opposite end as close as I can get to the street, put that first unit, and then you've got your lot split, you've got your ADU or your primary, then you put an ADU. What was left of that lot on the other side, you've got a primary, you put an ADU, and if you get to split it in the middle and create another lot, then you've got another house in an ADU. So if I can build anything, because a gentleman sitting in the room next to me, a first-time home buyer, millennial, I'm saying buy a duplex first, because if you get a duplex, by right, you're renting half and somebody else is renting the half. It's helping you maybe 25% with your mortgage. But I know in the city of San Diego, if I have a duplex, I get to add 2 ADUs right out of the gate. So that's kind of huge.
So on my property, My main house is on the top. It's the orange roof that you're
Okay.
seeing. Only half of that lower property is mine. The half that has the trees on it is
Okay.
mine. And the
Okay.
other half is my neighbor down my driveway.
Okay.
So,
Ken Wilcox, I know him.
so you're saying, I'm just drawing this out. So you've got the primary house here, but Ann, don't you think you would add an ADU first, right? Because it's easier and cheaper to, hold on a second, sorry. So here are the two lots, how we would ultimately split it, but you would build the ADU first here, like a big old 1,200 square foot ADU here, 3 bedrooms, something like that.
Okay.
And you do that because it's cheaper and easier to build and permit an ADU rather than a custom built house. So if you split the lot first, now you got to spend the money and time to permit a custom built house, which can take forever. ADUs, they're required to give you an answer in basically in 2 months, which always turns out to be 4 months, but you get the idea. So I would build the ADU, treat this as an ADU first, then split the lot, and you can then add a subsequent, like ADU here, or, whatever you want to do. So you could have 2 units here. You could potentially build another ADU around here, or, convert the garage, lots of other options, but something like that.
Yes. So, I mean, I was thinking a whole different approach, but that's a good one.
Okay.
Again, just looking at the area, I don't know, this is a 2-story house. The whole family lives in it. The lot split is probably going to take a while. I would probably take that large house, it's probably got an attached garage. I'd probably make that my ADU first.
Okay.
Here, start renting that out and getting the income as I'm applying for the lot split, and then build that like 1,200, and then do what you had just said. So, you're maxing out that first one as a primary, and then later I can add a bigger primary and then call that 1,200 as then an ADU, and the primary, you can switch it. So there's more than one way to go about it, is what I'm saying.
Now I understand too, you have to be an owner occupied to put in an ADU, right?
No,
No.
You don't.
all
Just a
single
junior.
family homes in California may have an ADU up to 1,200 square feet.
Yeah, but I thought you had to live in the main unit.
Nope. If you only owner occupied homes can have a junior ADU, but all single family homes can have an ADU. So in other words, California upzoned all single family homes to have 2 units. Callie asked a great question. Yes, I am a lender. And obviously we specialize at this. We do purchases and refinances too, but we specialize in renovation, remodeling, construction loans, including ADUs. And great question. Can you use future ADU income to qualify for a renovation loan? You don't need that for cash out. But you cannot currently use future rental income for renovation loans. But I haven't lost one yet. And I think that FHFA is going to change those rules so that we can use future rental income, which will really help get more people qualified. But generally speaking, I'm going to get people pre-qualified, even if they don't actually do the loan with me for a year or 2. And that's what I mean by long lead times on this project, because I want to make sure that they're doing things right and that they are qualified to do the loan. Raphael, you point out for SB9, a lot split is occupancy required. So Raphael, you feel free to jump in. Don't you have the sense though that this is California putting their toes in the water? Ultimately, they're testing the waters on this policy of lot splits, but ultimately they're probably going to make all lot splits a lot easier. And certainly you can split investment properties. It's just wouldn't be as easy in theory.
Yeah, and that was something that was pushed by the California Association of Realtors. they didn't want investors to come in and absorb all the inventory and then have a bunch of rental inventory.
Mhm.
The push was to create new ownership opportunities. And that's why they lobbied hard and got the owner occupancy provision. So
Mhm.
I wouldn't see that changing without the realtors changing course, and they were pretty adamant about it at the statewide level. So based on the lobby power of realtors, I wouldn't see that occupancy changing without a fight.
Okay. What other major changes are you seeing coming forward?
I mean, I think, as you mentioned, the finance piece is big because everybody's recognizing finally that ADUs are this gray area in their guidelines, and they're finally paying attention to it. Also because the Biden administration is basically put out a mandate to all these agencies to try to do things to increase ownership opportunities. So kind of all that combined is what I think is leading to that push for people to actually consider the future rental income as a possibility, where before it was just, you know, off the table, nobody cared. So I think a lot of that comes because there's, you know, now a push to find solutions, and these agencies are kind of throwing their hands up, and that's just low-hanging fruit at this point.
Mhm.
Well, doesn't it at times make it a little bit more difficult to sell a home instead of a single family home? Now you got possibly a 2-on-1 to sell, or you got the ADU, you got tenants, you got more. It's more difficult to sell at times, possibly.
No,
Unnecessarily.
it's easier to sell, a lot easier to sell, because if you're buying a home, you know, you have rental income that will more than offset your housing payment, and so your housing payment's a lot lower. People really want the rental income on the property, especially first-time home buyers.
Okay, but
Meredith,
you create an automatic property management issue.
Or you have family. A lot of people want their family to move in. If grandma's taking care of the grandkids, they can buy a house where grandma lives in back, and they kind of have privacy from each other, but grandma can easily take care of the grandkids. I see a lot of that.
hey, Meredith,
Okay. Yeah.
with correct me if I'm wrong, but if we're talking about, you can't use that ADU rental income on a future ADU, but if there's already an ADU existing that somebody built and it's now a listing that we're going to sell, and there's an existing rent that's got a lease, that can actually be used as qualifying income if it's existing, correct?
Correct. Correct.
So that's kind of super huge in the fact that we look at SB9, one of the things that, yeah, you live on the property, but you have to be there at least for the first 3 years. Well, that's kind of a gift. And who's going to police this thing, really? I think the guidelines, we've already seen ADUs get easier and easier as the years went on. When we first started, we couldn't take the existing garage and make that into a junior. Now we can take the existing garage and make it into a junior, you know? So I think the rules are just getting easier and easier. And Meredith and I have spoke, we think there's going to be more ADUs than primary homes in future years to come. That's super exciting right there.
Mm-hmm.
With a multi-generational buyer today, having extra units on your property, or you as agents listing in as you're finding a property, and it might not be the perfect right property, but if it's a larger property and it has the potential to increase to 4 units, that's worth showing your customer.
And we do have flyers. If you guys are looking for flyers showing the potential, just kind of like I outlined, we do have those for listings. So just reach out to me.
And I have a comment on the policing of it. Some of the early guidance and some of the spirit of the law, you know, isn't intending to police this, because as Ian said, who's going to police it? There's so much. But what the intent is to make an example of the big fish. They're going to be looking for institutional investors who are going out and doing this with, you know, a dozen properties, saying they're all owner occupied, and then, you know, turning them around and making them rentals. That's where the state's going to focus their enforcement, is in big players that are basically fraudulently saying that several are owner occupied. You know, and the owner occupied guy who suddenly decides to buy another house 12 months from now and doesn't stay there the full 3 years, that's going to be a small fish that, unless somebody makes a specific report, you know, the focus is going to be on making sure that these big institutional investors don't get into this game and falsely claim owner occupancy.
Mhm. Any other questions, guys?
Hi, this is Stephanie. How about the SB10? Because we just talk about like SB9 as ADU, but for like my understanding is for most investors, maybe they most interesting about SB10.
Yeah, SB10 is really just a recommendation. It's not a mandate. And I'll share the screen with you again. And so it doesn't, there's not a lot of teeth to it, but it does set the way, the path, and encourages. So as you probably know, all these cities are under mandates to increase their housing, and they actually have goals. I think they're called, what are they, Raphael? RENA goals, or so like Coronado is required to add 1,000 new, units to Coronado, and which they're fighting tooth and nail. But all of these cities are required to, because it's the only way to add affordable housing. So the state is recommending, but not requiring, that cities upzone their areas. City of San Diego has already done that. Rumor has it LA is about to adopt City of San Diego's rules, where you can have unlimited ADUs in theory on the property with a whole bunch of caveats. But it's very doable. We know people who are doing that, and I think there's some good options and opportunities.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's an encouragement. It doesn't have any teeth to it, but I think all the cities are starting to get it. Some cities will never do that. Coronado, Richard Bailey told me point blank, he's like, good luck. We have 60 million in the bank. We'll fight it tooth and nail. So, but City of San Diego loves it. La Mesa loves it. Lots of cities that need more affordable housing. Cool. In Bonita, oh, good question. How easy is it to do an ADU in Bonita, an unincorporated area? Ian?
Yes,
Yeah.
so County of San Diego is, my questions to anybody that's looking at doing something in unincorporated. I'd like to say about 90 to 95% of unincorporated is on septic. That brings a whole new complexity to it. Not everybody, like there's lots in Lakeside and some in Bonita that are served by sewer. So that's kind of a heads up for you guys. If it's served by sewer, it makes it a whole lot easier. If it's served by septic but sewer's close, that's a good second alternative. So think about a septic system. Pretty much for each bedroom, I need 150 lineal feet of leach line plus 150 feet reserve per bedroom. That's 300 lineal feet of leach line that are offset by 10 feet in each row as they go down the hill. So if you're served by septic, that's a big watch out point. If you're in other areas that are served by well only and no domestic water, even though your zone box says your minimum lot size is 2 acres and you're buying 4, you think, great, I got 2 lots coming out of this. Well, the County of San Diego is net acre. So by the time I do a flag lot or take some easement out of it, I've got 1 legal lot at 2 acres and I can't have a second lot. So I'm looking at least 4.5, 5 acres to get 2 units out of in that scenario. And then if it's further out, like off grid, I call it, if it's served by well water, based on the annual rainfall, they might say, I need 10 acres for 1 house. Now you're buying a lot that you think you get a whole lot more houses on and you can't. So the interesting thing over since 2017, everybody says, let's buy a big lot. It's like, whoa, wait a minute. I've had lots with 2,600 square feet on it with no parking and put ADUs on that. So lot size has nothing to do with this equation. It has to do with your utilities and your areas. Where are you going to rent the most? You're going to rent in the beach communities next to colleges, and where like North Park, South Park, there's a lot of bars. There's a lot of places where you can get around. You can Uber to and from. So as one of the slides here said, you know, we're not going to need parking in the future. And that's where, you know, I was at Plover the other day as a keynote speaker, and they didn't want to hear about me or Multitaskr and the opportunity that I can share with them. What does this new bill do? And there were 50 agents in the room and not one was on Caravan. And their big thing was, I don't want it in my backyard. It's like, it's here. You don't really have a say. Embrace it, or add more units to your house if too many people move in, and move somewhere else. Embrace it and capitalize on it.
So this, Ian, you're raising a good point though, because, you know, the second scenario, this is why it's important to have a team, because before you or your clients buy properties, it's really important to run this by Ian and I. And the first thing, Ian saying, well, if we're just adding septic, it's going to be more costly and complicated. My answer as a lender to that is, that's your problem, Ian, because if it costs, I typically see septic cost $10,000 to $40,000 depending on the situation. Well, if it's a $10,000 septic system, that's 45 extra bucks a month. That's a no-brainer to me to get an ADU out. But this is where your team and previewing properties and looking at options is super, super important. So I've also got questions about how easy is it to work with Chula Vista, Linda Vista, and La Jolla? And Chula Vista, I go, oh man.
Well, Chula Vista is actually not as bad. Multitaskr, we're based in Chula Vista. We already have a catalog of 30 master plans, and we're working at submitting our designs to Chula Vista and City of San Diego. And we were talking with the Vice Mayor of National City last week, and the Director of Housing in National City 2 weeks prior to that, to where, again, a master plan, we've heard that with swimming pools and spiral stairs. And what a master plan means is whatever that object is, that's a structure, it's been pre-approved, and then you create a site plan and a lot-specific energy for the heating and cooling, Title 24, and pretty much it should come out of the building department super quick. So, you know, obviously this pandemic stopped a lot of super quick. We don't even know what that is today. But I got off track because it's so exciting with all the rules that are changing with us. And as I'm kind of laughing in the back of my mind here, where Meredith says, well, the funding is not a problem with the septic, but then again, because when people are buying vacant land to put a house on with septic, I'm telling you, buy at least 20,000 square feet. I mean, I like to have at least 5,000 to 10,000 square foot just for my septic system. So if I'm going to increase units, then it becomes a problem. But as Meredith said, the team with that buyer, what do you want for today? What do you want for the future? And a lot of people are underdeveloping their lives because they haven't thought about it, where we can tell them, yes, not only before were you thinking one house, but before this new SB9 comes at us in January 22, when it's fully launched, you know, we were looking only at a junior and an ADU. Now we're looking at a lot split in 2 more units, and it's super exciting for people that understand it. And at least we're going to tell you, here's your full opportunity. You decide what you want to do now, but know that there's more to do later. So the placement of developing that lot, when Meredith showed that one little lot split and the first time she talked about it, push your limits. Don't just stick a house in the middle of that newly expanded lot, because now you're just crucifying yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can see why it's so important to work with somebody who actually has templates, has gotten through solid ADUs, and has a relationship with the permit guys. Because otherwise I see permits drag out forever by contractors who don't know ADUs. How long do lot splits take now?
I tell people 3 to 5 years for a lot split.
Right now. And the hope is that under SB9, I know Casita Coalition is pushing for a 6-month time period max and $15,000 max. So it's not perfect, but it's a heck of a lot easier than the way it goes now.